Hello, welcome back to the Haunted Basement Studio. I'm your host, Triple B, and in this hardcore comic book review, I am going to be talking Vampirverse because has Vampirella Dark Reflection got you confused? It did me for a little bit, and I realized I must go back in the thread of time, of reality, and figure out where this story started. So I am going to go through the whole series of Vampirverse, and we're going to do it as fast as possible, issues 1 through 6, and so we can be prepared to read Dark Reflections. All right, man, this series came out in 2021 and is written by Thomas Sniegoski and Jeannine Acheson. So issue number 1 is going to give us the premise of the story. There is a cosmic being called the Artist, and she is telling Vampirella that she is the knot that holds this whole thread together of reality. And in these realities, there's light versus darkness, order versus chaos. As Vampirella goes through this reality, fighting the good war, she is taken down by Nyx, the mistress of chaos, and Vampirella is fallen, but she is rewarded to the Garden of Eden. Vampirella is the daughter of Lilith, the first wife of Adam, and mother of all things monstrous. Vampirella is the key to her mother's redemption, sent out of the garden into the world to fight in her mother's name. And with Vampirella's death, mother and daughter are reunited in the Garden of Eden. Now Lilith and Vampirella want to live in peace in the Garden of Eden for all eternity. The powers that be have different plans as something is coming to destroy them. Vampirella says, "What is this?" as loud noise starts to rupture the garden. As another Vampirella comes crashing through the sky, she says, "Vampirella, hear me and listen well, for time is of the essence. Listen to me. The entire weave is in danger. The threat that could resolve in our very unraveling of our realities." And Vampirella says, "Realities? You talk as there were more than one. I don't understand." And another Vampirella says, "The weave is compressed of infinite threads. The Vampirella's purpose was always been to protect the fabric, for we are the knots that hold it together." And she says, "Vampirillas? There are more than one of us?" Yes, there are Vampirillas for every thread, and something is killing us. And if all the Vampirillas fall, well then all of a sudden bangings comes. And that's the first alarm of cries coming across reality as a giant being lands in the Garden of Eden and says, "Knock, knock, is anybody home?" And now the cloaked Vampirella says, "Damn it, I wish we had more time. Here, take this book." But the Eden Vampirella says, "This is my turf and I'm gonna fight." But then all of a sudden you hear her mother say, "His power is too great. You must go, my daughter." And then the cloaked Vampirella says, "If you don't listen to your mom, you gotta listen to me. You need to go. Bloodwing will kill you." And she says, "I'm not afraid." She says, "You need to leave because you are the only one that can save the reality thread. Take this book." And she pushes Vampirella, the one that Nyx killed her, through the portal, and then she goes through the thread of time where she lands, bam, and all of a sudden there's this little boy right with her, but he looks like a ghost. And she says, "Who are you?" He says, "Well, I am the Book of Prophecy. You could just call me the Book." Meanwhile, back at Eden, the cloaked Vampirella is fighting Bloodwing, who is Vampirella, one of the reality threads, and she is killing every single Vampirella from all the different threads of reality to gain strength so that she can get to the Artist and finally kill the Artist, and she can become God. Bloodwing now takes off her helmet and bites her fangs into the cloaked Vampirella and drains all of her blood and throws her body on the ground, and when she lands, it's a skeleton. And now Vampirella says, maybe you can explain what the seven hells is going on, and what the hell is the Book of Prophecy? And the book looks at her and says, well, that is an easy one. The Book of Prophecy is the threads of stories about Vampirella throughout the weave of time and fabric. Well, why are there so many stories about me? She says. Well, it's because the artist loves you so much, and she loves telling stories about you. So the artist comes up with more and more and more stories, and some threads of Vampirella has finished, and some are just beginning, and there have been some that has been going on for a very long time. And now Vampirella looks at him and says, well, what about Bloodwing? What does he have to do with this? What is this monster up to? And now the book looks up at Vampirella and says, Bloodwing learned about the artist and the fabric of time and didn't like it very much. And she says, is that the reason why Bloodwing was chasing your Vampirella? She says, the artist created my Vampirella to warn all the other Vampirellas about the fabric of time and the dangers of Bloodwing. And our Vampirella looks up at the book and says, what does he want? And he says, you should know this by now. It's not a he, it's a she. And she is you. End of issue number 1. And I did enjoy chapter 1. It's like they're breaking the fourth wall with the artists and the writers right there. It's like all these realities, all these different Vampirellas came from all these different artists that, has been writing her and drawing her books since she was created. Now let's get on to chapter 2. So many threads of fabric, so many realities, and so many Vampirellas. And in this world, Vampirella had to marry Dracula to save humanity. She just couldn't stand by and watch the bad guys win. So she created a new personality, a vampire god that will strike fear into all of Dracula and his minions. And she created a new identity called Bloodwing. And if they didn't obey her, she would punish all of them. After defeating Dracula in a battle to the death, Bloodwing Vampirella realizes that the world was badly damaged and that she was going to need to take control in order to protect it. And as she took control, things went from bad to worse. The world got darker, and so did she. Soon she was less of a Vampirella and more of Bloodwing, punishing the world for disappointing her. Until there was nobody left to punish, she was left alone with her anger, and as she wondered what was this all for, as she was getting closer to death, all of a sudden the Book of Prophecy's Vampirella appears, and it is her job to let the Vampirellas that are near death say that their time is over, and the artist is very pleased with them. And most Vampirellas are happy to hear this, but Bloodwing was not. It just made her more angrier. And now all of a sudden, all that anger and despair had somewhere to go as she lunges towards the Book of Prophecy Vampirella and sinks her fangs in her throat. And as she started to drink her blood, this blood was different because it came with the knowledge that the artist has instilled into that Vampirella so that she can perform her tasks, going to the different realities, letting those Vampirellas know that their stories has come to the end. And now Bloodwing has a purpose. She knows that she can go to all these other realities and kill all the Vampirellas to make her stronger, where she can finally get to the artist. The Book of Prophecy's Vampirella nearly escaped Bloodwing, and she thought maybe she was just angry. Something in her story mustn't have gone right, and so she was trying to fix her. But the pages are missing. And then now our Vampirella looks at the book and says, the pages are missing. Where have they gone? He says, she must have torn them out and left them in different realities. I wonder why. And then all of a sudden the ground starts to rumble. And all of a sudden a giant worm comes out from the earth and attacks Vampirella. And she says this abomination smells like chaos as the worm bites her. And she says, I fight back. And as she starts to fight back with the worm, all of a sudden all these gunshots happen and the worm just gets obliterated. And there stands another Vampirella holding a gun. And as they walk over to our Vampirella, they're saying, we know who you are. We were warned about you. And she says, no, I'm not the one that you were warned about. And as they pick up the Book of Chaos, Vampirella is bitten by the worm and the poison is starting to affect her. And as she passes out by their feet. But they say, but something doesn't feel right. She could have tried to kill us, not warn us. Well, maybe it was part of her cunning plan. Or maybe this ain't the one that we were warned about. Now, as Vampirella wakes up in the bed, we got Patch Vampirella with her friend Plague right there. And they're like, we got a whole lot of questions about this book. How does this book know what happened? What just happened to our world with the Cult of Chaos? And then Patch Vampirella looks at her, you know, we were kicking Chaos's ass for so long. I guess they decided to strike back hard. And as she tells her what happened, that they launched missiles loaded with supernatural enhanced viruses, something that if it did not kill you would transform you into something monstrous, something chaotic, and that we were all the last of those still fighting to save a world on the brink of total chaos. Which begs one question. Who wrote this damn book? And now as Vampirella is putting on her boots, she says, I am having a difficult time trying to figure that out myself. Maybe you can help them, book. And then all of a sudden the book turns into the Ghost Boy and says, I am the Book of Prophecy. And they get all scared. I'm like, can this get any more weirder, they say? He says, you can just call me Book for short. What is written in me is from the artist, from stories that are being written and stories that were written. And then Vampirella says, as I understand it, this reality, this thread, one of many, makes up something called the fabric, which was created by a cosmic being called the Artist. And now the Book of Prophecy is telling them that his Vampirella is being chased across the fabrics of time by an evil version of herself. And that virgin is Bloodwing, and it is killing all the different Vampirellas on the thread. And now Patch Vampirella asks, what does Bloodwing want? And our Vampirella says, we don't know. The Book of Prophecy is missing pages. And now the Ghost Boy says, I can hear the pages. They're somewhere here in this world. And as they look out the window with a bunch of zombies around them. Now they're flying down the road in their tank, plowing over zombies, looking for the pages. And all of a sudden the book says, stop, it's in here. And they get out, and it's a comic book store. And Vampirella and the Book of Prophecies go in there while Plague and Patch Vampirella are plowing down zombies with their guns. And all of a sudden Bloodwing shows up and attacks Patch Vampirella as they collide together. Meanwhile, inside the comic book store, they find the Vengeance of Vampirella comic book. And this is where the Book of Prophecy says, this is the pages I need. As he absorbs them, outside the fight still continues, but Bloodwing has control over our Vampy, where Plague says, no, I will help fight. But they grab him as a portal opens up, and they jump through the portal as Bloodwing kills our Patch Vampirella, and then says, let them run, I'll find them. And at last the Book of Prophecy, and so the Artist will fall and reality will be fine. And that is the end of chapter 2. And so now we got stuff going on. We got this book. We need to find these pages to see where this reality thread is going to take us. But every different reality thread that we seem to go on, another Vampirella falls to Bloodwing. So let's get ready for chapter 3. Life has been perfect for her up until now. Not a care in the world, living in a perfect neighborhood with her lovely mother, Vampirella, and her awesome dad, Adam, with the pesky little brother named Adam Jr. They were sitting at the breakfast table eating their breakfast, getting ready to fight chaos later on in the day. Her name is Lilith, daughter of Vampirella, and they're living in the 1950s, all black and white. Then all of a sudden, Bloodwing comes crashing in through the door and says, "Hello, neighbors. Do you mind if I borrow a cup of sugar?" Vampirella jumps up and yells, "Kids, go to your room," as she jumps at Bloodwing, but Bloodwing backhands her and Vampirella goes flying up against the wall. Adam pulls out his Uzis and he starts shooting Bloodwing, but she reaches out and grabs his head and squeezes, and blue lights go everywhere as she says, "I am your worst nightmare." Lilith now yells, "Daddy!" And Adam says, "I'm scared." And Vampirella says, "I'm scared too. This isn't how it's supposed to go down." Now Vampirella flies towards Bloodwing and hits her, and she falls back, but Bloodwing swings back at her with her armored claw and takes out half of Vampirella's face. As Lilith and Adam are trying to turn around and run out of the house, Adam says, "No, I need to fight with mommy," and grabs the knife and runs up to Bloodwing, where Bloodwing is sucking the life out of Vampirella. And he tries to stab her in the back, but the armor, it doesn't do nothing. And she looks down at Adam holding dead Vampirella up and says, "I'm sorry your mother is dead, but if you stay still, you can join her." And light comes out of her armored hand and disintegrates Adam, and he dies. And Lilith yells, "No!" Now Lilith turns and runs out the front door with Bloodwing right behind her saying, "Who is next? You just need to stand still, because once I kill you, I need to find the Book of Prophecy." And she says, "Hold still. This isn't going to hurt." "No, I lied. This is going to hurt a lot." And right before she incinerates Lilith, our Vampirella and Plague show up through the portal with the Book of Prophecy with guns blazing. Bam, 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 and they hit Bloodwing, and Bloodwing is stunned. Vampirella says, "By the looks of things, we are too late." But Plague says, "Yeah, but at least we saved a kid. That's got to count for something." And the Book of Prophecy says, "What counts is the missing pages. They are close. They are very close." Vampirella looks at them and says, "You guys find the missing pages," and then she flies towards Bloodwing. And as the Book of Prophecy looks through Lilith's homework papers, he finds the pages. And at that time, Bloodwing has her fangs in Vampirella's neck. And Lilith says, "No, you get your stinking hands off of her," and flies towards Bloodwing and smacks her. And Bloodwing says, "That's why I never had kids." And then they are going towards the portal and are saying, "We can't leave her." She says, "Don't leave me," Lilith yells. As Lilith flies towards the portal, all three of them and the Book of Prophecy make it in the portal, leaving Bloodwing in 1950. The shadows are long, dark, and deep, filled with terrors that threaten the lives of sanity of all who encounter them. But there is one born of those very shadows who protect us from the things that thrive in the darkness. They call her the Vamp, and she has come to deliver us from evil. The Vamp is in a dark mansion fighting the undead left and right with her guns. As she makes her way from room to room, she's killing the undead. She's got a date with the cult of chaos, she says. And as she makes her way closer to the chaos members, they are trying to retrieve a demon eye to take it back to their master so that he can become whole again. As the vamp runs out of ammo, she pulls out 2 daggers and she's fighting one of the cult members. And all of a sudden, a portal opens that's all blue, and Vampirella, Lilith, Plague, and the Book of Prophecy walk out as the vamp and the Cult of Chaos member both look at them. And then the Cult of Chaos member says, "Never squander an opportunity," and takes the eye and leaves. And Vamp is like, "What just happened? You let them get away." As they walk through the portal, Lilith says, where are we? And Vampirella says, "We are exactly where we're supposed to be." And Plague says, "Hopefully this time we are not too late." And the Book of Prophecy says, "You deal with what's going on here and I will find the pages." And the vamp says, "What is this?" And she says, "Damn it, they are gone. What have you done?" As Vampirella walks up to the vamp and says, "Oh dear, I don't think she was supposed to leave." Like, crap. Now, where would my Vampirella be hiding the pages? As the Book of Prophecy is looking around, and the vamp says, "Your vamp?" The vamp says, "I have no idea who you're supposed to be, but you just let the Cult of Chaos High Priest escape, allowing the Dark Lord to return to Earth. And why in the devil do you look like me?" Vampirella looks at her and says, "Our apologies, but we are traveling across the fabrics of reality in an attempt to stop an evil perhaps even greater than the Chaos Gods themselves." And Plague says, "An evil that wants to kill all the Vampirellas from all the threads of the fabric." And Lilith says, "Are you as confused as I am?" Now the book says we need to find the missing pages of the Book of Prophecy. That's the only way that we are going to stop Bloodwing. And the vamp says, "Missing pages, multiple realities of fabric, multiple Vampirellas." Book says, "We know it is confusing, but you're going to have to trust us if we are going to survive this." And as he finds the missing pages, he says, "Oh boy, and it is worse than I thought. Bloodwing doesn't just want to kill Vampirellas. She wants to be the only Vampirella. Her plan is to use the collective powers to kill the artist and reshape the fabric in her own twisted image." The vamp now suspects that something must be different. She's hunted the Cult of Chaos for millennium, but she heard through the ether that they are desperate, that they need to do something else different, and this might be their end game. And now Vampirella says to the vamp, "If that is the case, then we must stick this through. We must figure this out." And Plague says, "I am down for anything. We must stop Bloodwing." And we got Lilith right there in the corner says that Bloodwing killed my parents. I just don't want to see anybody get hurt. And then the book says, we all have our part and we must take care of this because there is too much at stake. And the vamp holds her hands out and says, "I would certainly hope for some assistance, especially since it is entirely your fault that the High Priestess escaped. And your knowledge of multiple realities could prove quite helpful to my mission of eradicating the Cult of Chaos from all existence." Now, if we're going to achieve that, we're going to need to know where this Cult of Chaos has took the demon's eye, and where is that going to be? And the vamp says, "I know what I can do." And as she walks over to one of the dead bodies, they look at her and say, "What are you going to do with that dead body?" And she pulls off of her glove. This reality of Vampirella is very interesting, and our Vampirella walks up and says, "Indeed," as they watch what the vamp does next. As she puts her hand on top of his head, she says, "Call it a gift because they have no other choice but to talk to me." And the dead's body ghost comes out of his body and he's like, what am I doing here?" She says, "I will let you pass to the other side, but I'm sorry to inform you that you are dead. But if you talk to me, I will see that you will pass and move on from here." He's like, I don't want to be dead. What happened?" She says, "Well, it probably had something with me shooting you in the head." And she says, now tell me where the cult of chaos will be performing their summoning ritual, and I will allow you to move on to what awaits you in the great beyond. He says, I don't want to stay here, so I'll tell you. After we acquired the demon's eye, we were to meet at the observatory, the Anchorman Observatory. They said they would use the jewel to talk to the stars, and then our Chaos Master would come home to us. And she says the Anchorman Observatory, yes, the technology there would certainly aid them in speaking to the stars. And now she puts her glove back on and says, we got what we needed. Now we need to get to the observatory right away, as the other three are just staring at her thing. This is fascinating. What the hell just happened? She says, with my gifts was provided so I can combat and fight against the darkness of evil. They make it to the Anchorman Observatory, and now as they fight their way through the cult of chaos, they are doing a ritual. But by the time they get to the gate, it is too late, and the cult priestess says, welcome, master. And Bloodwing shows up and says, oh wow, I didn't know there was going to be a party. End of chapter 3. Man, those first 3 issues was a wild ride. And I know I did say that I was going to tell you the whole series in this one video, but I was trying to do like 7 minutes an issue, but it just took way too long because I wanted to make sure that you guys understood the story. I didn't want to cut anything out. So if you want a part 2 to finish the conclusion of Vampiverse, make sure you tell me in the comment section below. And so we know who Lilith is, the daughter of Vampirella in Vampirella Dark Reflections. And we got introduced to the vamp. So let's see where the next 3 issues will go with this one. And remember, sub to the channel because I got all these comic book reviews coming out with some crazy unboxings on these comic books. Absolutely enjoy it. And you guys do one thing. You keep it hardcore. Comics. Laters.